Hello everyone, hello Redzone. So instead of the annual pre-cycle preview that I typically write out in like essay form, I thought this year I could start doing it a little differently and actually put it into video form and throwing it up on YouTube. So if you don't already know, I mean, and everyone in the Red Zone should know this, I will be running the Washington football team for this cycle in the Redzone Online Franchise. And we had a lot of work to do. And if you're not familiar with the Red Zone, or if you're not in the Red Zone or whatever and you're watching this, the Red Zone is a sim online franchise in Madden. It's focused on being like really immersive and trying to replicate the NFL as much as possible. There's a big emphasis on members producing like real life type media. For instance, we have team Twitters. There's Twitter personalities like fake Adam Schefters and stuff like that who post league news on our Twitter. There's podcasts. People call games, and I mean, there's 1,000 other things that people do to make this league really, really good in terms of the media and the gameplay and all that kind of stuff. And we've been doing this since back in 2012 is what that says on the logo that we've been there since. It's crazy to think I was there in the first season. It's crazy to think it's been that long, and it's been really the same core group of dudes throughout that whole time. So that's really, really cool. But ever since it started on Operation Sports, media has been a huge emphasis, and it's what made the league kind of stand apart from all the other ones, is just the dedication that everyone has. This is going to be a preview of the cycle of what I want to do with the Washington football team. We're only going to look at the offense in this video, our projected starters, future moves, and really this first season strategy, maybe a little bit going forward. I will say that I prefer that the strength of the line be together. For instance, if your right tackle is good, I would prefer my right guard be good than say like just the left guard, so that you can go to one side of the offense when you're running the ball, or you can slide protection to the other side. It just helps with game planning and strategizing that way when your players are kind of in a row. From center to right guard, those are our three best offensive linemen, and the weakness of the offensive line is definitely the left tackle and left guard. Overall, this team I will need to make a commitment to the offensive line early on in this cycle to make this unit tick, to make it run with my overall team building strategy. I can get by with having average to below average skill players if I just have a solid and developed offensive line. I will need to commit, at least in my first 2 seasons, to high draft picks at tackle, probably both tackle positions, both left and right, and then finding a left guard or developing a left guard who can play for the long haul. There are 2 players that I want to look at specifically. Our best offensive lineman and overall our best player is Brandon Scherf. He's on the last year of his deal. Getting him back is going to be really important, even though he's going to be 29. Offensive linemen and superstar dev offensive linemen, their decline will be a lot less drastic than skill player positions and speed players who have a lot more athletic centralized positions. So for Scherf, it'll be very important that I re-sign him, and hopefully re-sign him for the end of his tenure, so that maybe a 4-year deal, maybe a 5-year deal, depending. But basically, I have to pay him whatever he wants because he's just too good to let walk on an offensive line that's just too poor. The second player I want to highlight on the offensive line is Shadik Charles. I think I'm pronouncing that right. I haven't looked it up, and I don't know him. But he's the second player that I want to highlight, and we're highlighting him because of his age and his athleticism. He's very athletic for a tackle, for a lineman. I think he's got like 71, 72 speed, which isn't important at all. But just knowing that he's athletic gives me it helps my immersion in picturing this player on the field. So With him, he's only 21 years old, which is really young for rookies, which gives him an extra year to develop. Him being a 62 overall, that's not good, but because he has the extra year to develop, he will be another 2 or 3 points overall better, which means he would be coming in, if he was a 22-year-old rookie, he'd be coming in at like a 65, 66, which is, pretty decent. And then depending on how we do, he could be even higher than that. And then if you give him that same type of projection over the next few years, he could be the guy who develops into left guard. So he's the guy I think can make the biggest jump from season 1 to the future. He'll most likely for the first season jump into left guard. He will be higher. Our current left guard is a 65 overall. He'll be higher than that by the end of the season, most likely, unless he gets hurt or something along those lines. But overall, he's probably the future at that position for now. And then in the draft, we should probably go somewhere maybe in the left tackle position, and then we might have ourselves a nice looking line. Maybe not great, but okay. Going forward, the plan with the offensive line is, in the first 2 or 3 seasons, a heavy commitment both in the free agency market, the waiver wire pickup, and the draft needs to happen for this unit to progress. Scherf is going to be a top player on the unit. I don't think that's going to change unless something crazy happens in free agency and a top guy is dropped and I, for some reason, want to overspend. But it'll have to be the right guy because we just usually don't overspend at all, and we want to get the value. So overall, heavy emphasis on the offensive line early on. It'll help everybody on the offense, and it'll ultimately make the team a better team if we can hold on to the ball and run the ball effectively. Tight ends are the next position that we're going to look over, and this is by far the worst position group on the entire team. It might be the worst position group in the entire league. I haven't went in depth in all the rosters, but I feel pretty confident when I say that. We do have players who have skill sets, but ultimately it's a very, very poor group. Jeremy Sprinkle is a lanky speed tight end who has below average receiving abilities in terms of his catching, his route running, and stuff like that. He has a lot of work to do. He's 26, so his development's basically over. The next guy, and who's in a position battle with him to be the starter, is Richard Rodgers. And he's kind of in that same mix where he's not great. So very overall, the tight end position is a really big weakness for us. We don't have a player who's really good at anything. We will most definitely we'll have our ears to the waiver wire for tight ends because basically any player who's released is probably an upgrade over what we have. We have a lot of work to do at tight end, but tight end is one of those positions that I feel is one of the worst positions to invest heavily in. So having said that, we probably won't invest heavily into the tight end. I think that in terms of year progression throughout the week, things like that it's just one of the worst positions to put a lot of time in, just because of the amount of players that are on the team and the impact that player has on the field. That being said, all 11 players matter, and you want a good one if you're going to have one. So we need to upgrade this position, and in all likelihood, it'll come early on in the waiver wire. I want to focus on 3 players in this group. It's kind of a lot, but based on the depth that we have at the position, I kind of feel like it's necessary. So the first one is Jeremy Sprinkle here. Like I said earlier, he's tall, he's 6'5", he's fast with 84 speed. I think it was 80, 89 acceleration. Those are pretty standout attributes, but his problem is he's not very good at catching the ball, and he can't block. Now, when in terms of catching wide open catches, that's going to be good for him. But if it comes to any kind of catch that's contested, he's going to drop it. So we're going to have to put him in positions where he's wide open. He's not a very good blocker. As you can see, he's a 53 overall blocking tight end, which is very, very poor. He's 26 years old, so he's, like I said earlier, he's at the end of his developmental stage. So he's right now a stopgap. Next player we're going to focus on is Richard Rodgers. You know him from like the Hail Mary catch in Green Bay.
It's going to get there. He turned 32 yesterday. Does he have a vintage moment in him? In the end zone, it is caught for the win. Richard Rodgers with a walk-off touchdown.
Richard Rodgers is, I look at him more as a blocking tight end, as more of a possession tight end, and I think that that's a problem with me, is that I typically put possession guys in that blocking category. He's not particularly a good blocker either. He is better than Sprinkle at blocking. He is a lot slower. He doesn't have the speed. He does a little bit more of that catching traffic type, though. He has a little bit higher of those catching attributes in the game. So right now there is a little battle between him and Sprinkle. I haven't fully made up my mind. I do like having a tight end on the field who can block and catch, so he might get the nod over Sprinkle, and I might just have to spell them a lot. I don't want it to be a tell. I don't want to give away saying when Rodgers is in the game it's going to be a run, that kind of thing. So I'll have to figure that out. But also, I don't want to go in too many two tight end looks, just because of how poor our tight ends are. It would be dumb of me to take off one of our receivers who I have a higher grade on than to put in Richard Rodgers and Sprinkle at the same time. So that's something that we're going to have to work through. And Richard Rodgers is, once again, he's our number 2 stopgap at the tight end position. The last guy I want to look at the tight end spot is Thaddeus Moss. He's more of that H-back guy. He's only 6'2". He's faster than Richard Rodgers, but not as fast as Sprinkle. He's a lot better at catching the ball than both of them. A little bit better blocker, so he has a way more staying ability. Most likely he will be my third tight end, and he will be my fullback as well, just based off of his height, weight, speed, and a little bit of his blocking. And unless we find a guy off the waiver wire who's just a stud blocker and we can throw in a fullback, but right now I don't see that happening. We do need a fullback, but Thaddeus Moss, his versatility will be really good with us as a third tight end, possibly that fullback. Him being a rookie helps as well. And like I said, I don't like investing at the tight end position. Most of my guys are going to be value type tight ends off of either waiver wire in the offseason during free agency, or low drafted players. So like we're talking 5th to 7th round in UDFAs. So Thaddeus Moss, I do like him. He's on a rookie deal. He'll stick around. So just as an overview of that position and the future outlook, like I was kind of alluding to, and if I didn't already, most likely this will be the position, the most watched position in terms of the waiver wire, because basically any player who's dropped that has any kind of skill set is probably better than what we have, even if it is a third tight end or second tight end. Our second and first are pretty interchangeable. So if he's a 68 overall who can block a little bit, but he's still slow, he still has a place on the team. And then in terms of the future outlook, both Sprinkle and Rodgers, Sprinkle might have a little bit more staying power. Rodgers is a one-and-done player. He's not going to be on our team for much longer. After probably the first waiver wire pickup, Rodgers is probably gone, depending on the skill set of the player that we find on the waiver wire or just in free agency. Depending on the strength of free agency in the first year, second year, we could make a play on a guy who's kind of just hidden behind the top guys. We're not going to spend bunches of money to get a top tight end. We're gonna stay low, try to get a guy who just has the skill set that lines up with our needs, and pay him adequate money, and not get into a bidding war over a tight end who has a pretty limited role. The next position I want to look at is wide receiver. Wide receiver is definitely our best position on offense by far. We have a player that checks pretty much every box. We have the possession guy, we have the big body guy, we have the speedster, we have the slot receiver, we have the make you miss kick returner, and then we have a couple of each one of those. And every player except for maybe Latimer is relatively young. And I couldn't have drawn it better myself. I mean, that's exactly what I'm looking for whenever I'm building a receiving core. Is I like to run my passing game off of matchups. If you have a big, tall corner, I want to put my quick guy on. If you have a fast corner, I want to put my possession guy on, my route runner, things like that. So I like to take advantage of the matchups, and then I also like to put players in positions to run the route that's best for them. So if it's a slant, I want to put my big body guy there. If it's a go route, obviously I want my speed guy there. So my whole passing game is predicated to matchups and putting the skill sets in the right spot. The first guy that I want to talk about specifically in the wide receiver group is Trey Quinn. And you probably ask yourself why. I mean, he's pretty lackluster, but really he is the perfect type of player for that slot receiver role. Now, it's not just that he's white, it's actually his speed. And this is something that I've tested a lot last cycle. My third receiver was more of a slower guy, and it actually helps him get open, especially versus zone, and actually mostly at versus zone. And the reason why is, just think perhaps you're running an out route from the slot. He's running an out route from the slot position, and they have maybe a purple zone, and he's sitting on that sideline, or you have it's cover 3, and the outside corner has gone up the field with the go route. Well, because Trey Quinn is actually not very fast, it gives me, the quarterback, a really good progression to go through. So typically, if you have a super fast guy and he's running an out route, you're probably going to have to read that out route pretty quick, because he's going to hit that corner and go. Well, when you have a slow guy, I can read the go route, I can read the flat, and then I can come back to the out route. Now, like I said, versus man, he's not going to be great. His speed isn't going to give him that separation that we need, but underneath zone coverage, that kind of stuff, he is very underrated. I had Barry Switzer last cycle, and also Danny Amendola to start the cycle. And Danny Amendola, he only had like 84 speed, 83 speed, and he really let me onto this because he had such good catch in traffic and catching route and route running that I'm not going to release him. I'm going to try to find a way to utilize him. And it actually just happened because I just played him. It just kind of stumbled across this fact that the slow speed, because in Madden you're either sprinting or you're not. There's only 2 speeds. So if you have a defense full of fast guys, they're going to overrun him. And like I said, between zones, it just gives you that extra minute, or not minute, but extra second to go through your progressions and not have the receiver run through the route before you ever get a chance to look at him. The next receiver that I want to look at is Steven Sims. Now, in real life, Steven Sims, his whole skill set is that quick twitch, Dante Hall-esque kick returner / just, like I said, make you miss quick twitch. That's him in a nutshell.
2nd and 8 to give. Coming around this side is Steven Sims, and Sims still on the loose and down the sideline. Steven Sims gonna go all the way to the end zone. No flags. Well, that's the.
And I actually don't think that Madden did a very good justice. I mean, if you look at his agility rating, for instance, he's at 84. I mean, that's he's definitely quicker than he is fast, but they apparently they don't agree. But if you watch this guy play, you know that attribute of his just jumps off the screen at you. That's what he does. Is he can move very quickly. He's changed his direction, his juke move, they're all very low. I don't understand why they're so low. I would like to see his ratings up against other people that they assume to be elusive. But anyways, Steven Sims for us, he is going to be the 4th/3rd receiver. He's gonna rotate in. He's gonna be really heavily involved in that screen game and short passing in our punt returner. As we get more into the strategy, Steven Sims, you'll see how he kind of comes into this just a little bit better. But Steven Sims is going to be a huge player for us. Him being a star dev is nice. And maybe after a season or 2 with us, he might even be even higher just because of the volume that we're going to utilize Steven Sims at. So his skill set of being that quick twitch, jukey guy, he's not amazing at it in game as he should be in real life, but he's definitely a guy that I'm excited to play with. So now overall, just for the receiver position as a whole in the future outlook, really this, like I said, this position is pretty much set. After Latimer leaves, we'll probably look for another big body guy just to fill that role, but even Harmon is pretty good in that aspect. I mean, 6'2" is pretty good for a receiver, and his catching in traffic and catch is pretty good. So it's not going to be even a year or 2 down the line, it's not going to be a huge issue. We probably find someone, a depth guy in free agency, maybe a late season waiver wire pickup, or even maybe a late draft pick. But most likely, in the next season or 2, a lot of our resources are going to be going to the offensive line, tight end. Not necessarily tight end because of our philosophy, but we will be looking at tight end, possibly quarterback and stuff like that. So don't look for a lot of moves at receiver in the first couple seasons unless something just jumps out at me that I can't refuse. So overall, it's a young group that doesn't need an influx of talent. It's one of the positions I have the most confidence in, and I'm looking forward to throwing it to all these guys. The next position that we're going to look at is running back. Now, this team has a weird running back position going down. With guys gone, it's kind of wide open. We have Adrian Peterson, who he's only going to be here for 1 year, and then we have a bunch of lower tier backs with specific skill sets. And if you haven't gotten the theme yet, I'm kind of cool with that. I'm kind of cool with having specific skill sets for specific things, and kind of utilizing each guy to their potential, to what their attributes position them to be. So if we're looking at this and we're saying, okay, what's the overall theme here? Well, ultimately, even in this game, to me, it feels like running backs are a dime a dozen. I love the position. It's my favorite position in football. I can find free agent running backs that I want to run the ball with, that I just have fun running with. I envision them on the field in real life. I envision them in the game and how they would run in game, and putting them in positions that I feel like is something you would see in game. I'm kind of role playing at that point. I mean, this whole league is pretty much role playing, but basically, our situation that we're kind of in right now is we're in a really good spot because our offensive line isn't very good, and Adrian Peterson's going to probably be getting the bulk of the carries, and that's actually okay because hopefully next season we come back, our offensive line is better, and we have a young stud to give the ball to. The first guy that I want to look at, or actually I'm going to look at one person for running backs, is Bryce Love. Bryce Love is the fastest running back on our roster. He's on his rookie contract, and he is going to be our spellback. He's definitely going to be the number 2 guy. He'll probably get the most carries out of besides Adrian Peterson. And that's not just because of his speed. It has a lot to do with his speed, but really I just like that smaller back in this kind of offense. We're going to be doing a lot of short passing, and because of our screen game, we're going to have a heavy screen game. Bryce Love's going to be a big part of that. So we'll see a lot of Sims, a lot of Love in this short intermediate passing game, and hopefully taking a lot of pressure off of our quarterback with the poor offensive line that we have. Bryce Love, he's young, he has a lot to develop. He'll be better every season just because we're going to use him. And I can't wait to use this guy in his skill set to match up with Sims. I just think it's going to be really dynamic. I hope it's going to be really dynamic. I need to get all the moves down so that I can run with his full potential. But Bryce Love, he's going to be a key feature of this kind of spread them out, space, short passing game. And we really talked about the future and the overview of the position, but really the future for this position is it can really only be Gibson and Love at this point. So past this season, we'll be probably looking at mid to late draft picks. So we're saying maybe 3rd round at highest, just because it seems so easy to get you can get a fast guy, a power guy in the middle of the draft and just start him, and you might happen to get some awards and get a boost in that depth trait. So we're not going to really worry too much about running back. And even if that isn't the case, even if we don't find a running back that we really particularly like I said in the opening, I feel like the dime a dozen, and I could run with about anybody. It's fun to run with about anybody as long as they have a juking ability to some extent, just because we don't just want to run straight into people all the time. Even if you're fast, I want you to be able to move just a little bit. So we want to look for jukes, for the cutback ability and all that kind of stuff. So overall, running back is not a position that I'm really too worried about. It usually comes. It's usually one of those positions that you get one. And last but not least, the last position that we will be looking at on offense is quarterback. And as any Washington fan knows, this is a big question mark for this team. We have the young, highly drafted quarterback. We have the highly touted veteran backup who has injury issues, and then we have the third stringer, who probably will be the second string for us, who has some time starting. So overall, I would say, just by looking at the overall of the players, the quarterback position is a poor position for us. It's one of our weaker positions on the team. Not as weak as tight end, but it's probably our second to third weakest position. It's just good that Dwayne Haskins isn't making the decisions on the field, because then we'd really have some trouble. But because he's not, we have kind of a big question mark, which leads me into the first player that I want to look at, and that is Dwayne Haskins. So, I mean, lucky for him, he's star development. That's the only reason why this is even a question at this point, if he's going to be my future quarterback or not. I will say that we really don't have a choice in our first season. Dwayne Haskins has got to be the guy, unless he gets hurt, which if he gets hurt, it's just going to lead us to a top draft pick and probably his replacement. But then that's kind of good for us, not good for him. Star development keeps him in the discussion. In just a few of the warm-up games that I've played with Dwayne Haskins, he's not been good. The offensive line being poor does not do him any favors because of his poor accuracies and his tendency to, if he's scrambling, he's not throwing the ball accurately. If he's under pressure, he's not throwing the ball accurately. So we're going to have to adapt to him, to what he can't do, basically. And that's not a good look. Now, he's a young quarterback. We can say we're going to develop him, but really he's going to have some MVP seasons to really get to the point where we're going to be confident that he's the future of the franchise at the quarterback position. So there's a lot riding on his first season. We can't really make a decision until what we see this first season, but my projection is it's just going to be okay, and we're not looking for okay. We're looking for championships. So really that just leads us into the future and the outlook of the position. Alex Smith is gone. If he doesn't retire, most likely I'm going to cut him and just eat the cap and hope that he retires in the next season or so. I can't see him going any further if he doesn't start the entire season. He's going to continue dropping in regression, and his cap number is really bad, so the sooner he gets out, the better. He is worse than Dwayne Haskins in almost every category, so I don't see him being able to push that position. And really, Kyle Allen, he has a little bit more mobility, and I would say his accuracies are comparable to Dwayne Haskins, if not just a tad better. So him being the backup is fine by me. We'll see what happens throughout the season. If Dwayne Haskins has a good season and he wins an award and he gets a dev upgrade or something along these lines, then we're having a different discussion. But until that happens, it's really to be determined. So the last thing that I want to go over in the video is the offensive strategy, and we've already kind of touched on it throughout. When we talked about Sims and Love, the kind of role that they're going to play in the offense, and that being a big part of it. I mean, that's just because of our offensive line and how it affects Dwayne Haskins. So basically, he has really bad medium to long, deep accuracies. His short accuracy is just okay. And something I've noticed throughout in my warm-up games is that any lick of pressure, he's throwing errant passes. So just to keep the turnovers low and to be efficient, we're going to keep with a short passing game. We're going to try to be creative with it. I'm going to spend a lot of time in practice with plays and seeing what kind of audibles I can make to make a play a little bit better in the short to mediate area. And on top of that, those jet sweeps, those screens, those bubble screens, stuff like that, finding the right mix and the right counters to those is going to be really big in our season success. If we can get consistent 3 and 4 yards, 4 and 5 yards from those types of screens, and we can not be predictable about it, then I'm going to be really happy. And I feel like even if we only learn how to do those this season, we can take that forward, and hopefully next season we have a better offensive line, we have a little bit more a better running game, and we'll have guys that kind of progress a little bit further. So I think that we have a lot going in that area if I can just improve in those two spots. Basically, the offense is going to run through McLaren, Quinn, Sims, AP, and Love, and that's going to be by design. And obviously, there's like 6 guys there, so I mean, it's not like I'm talking out of church or anything like that. So the offense will definitely run through those guys. And then the future strategy, like I said, if I can learn to get those things a lot of times with the bubble screens and like the regular screens, they're just kind of things that you kind of pull out of your pocket every once in a while. But I want to build a scheme around it. I want to say, here's our bubble screen, and here's another play that we run that's similar to that bubble screen, or looks like the bubble screen, or has that bubble screen action, or there's an RPO of that, or whatever, and just kind of build off of that so that we have a counter to everything that we do going forward. And in the future, like I said, the future offense is more of a balanced offense, and I don't mean just running and the run-pass balance. I mean formation balance. I like having heavy formations. I like having spread formations. I like having a diverse offense that you can't really key in on. And another thing that helps with that is just the psyche of play calling. If I come out in 4 wide, and someone comes out in the dime, then that's going to stick out. It sticks out to me when someone runs 4 wide. So if they come out in 4 wide one time and they run this one play, if they come out again in a quarter later, I'm going to think it's that same play if they're coming out in that same formation. So just using that kind of psychology against people with play calling and stuff like that is something I've always done, and that I will continue to do throughout this series. This was obviously pretty long-winded, and I appreciate anyone who watched, and especially if you watched the whole thing. I'll be coming out with a defensive preview in the next few days, followed by the Week 1 game plan. I anticipate the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to make our season previews, I'm going to make an off-season preview, stuff like that, and then throughout the week I will be posting game plan footage where I'm game planning against the guy that I'm going up against. I might also do a game recap, but I'm not sure. That might be a little bit too much to fit in because our advances are about 4 to 8 hours, and sometimes they're a little quicker than that, especially at the beginning of the cycle. So I don't know if I'll be able to fit that much into that window. But if you're interested in any of that, throw me a follow. If you like the video here, you like this type of stuff, give me a like. If you have any suggestions, just on anything that I maybe left out that you'd like me to go more in depth into, or if you didn't like something, whatever, just let me know. All of your feedback is welcome. And if you guys actually want to watch the games live, they're not at specific times because we have to schedule this with our opponents, but we are required to stream all of our games. I stream mine on Twitch TV/BrettMan21. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to click on that and give me a follow, and then like I said, just you can watch when the games go live. There won't really be any commentary with it or anything like that. It'll just be the games, and I'll probably at the end of the season throw up some highlights, stuff like that. And yeah, if you're interested in joining the Red Zone, also leave a comment below and we'll see what we can do. Have a good one, guys. Thanks.